The myth of the secret school was started by the German Philhellene Karl Eichen, who gives us information about the state of education during the Ottoman period, where he states that the Ottomans hindered schools more than churches. The relevant information was given by the scholar Stephanos Kanellos, who attempted to justify to the German Philhellene why the Greek people had been spiritually cut off from Europe. This view began to appear after the establishment of the Greek state and to be accepted in historical studies as a real fact. The myth develops as follows: the Ottomans denied the Greeks knowledge. The latter, however, who had within them the flame of inquisitiveness, did everything to become educated. Thus, in all the provinces of the empire where Greeks lived, secret schools were created in churches and monasteries. There, late at night, young Greek children learned reading, writing, history, etc. As proof of the above claim, many have cited the well-known work of Nikolaos Gysis, The Secret School, an oil painting from 1885 to 1886, which depicts a priest teaching Greek children late at night. And next to him, the children's father, holding a rifle. In fact, even today, monks show the public visiting their monastery crypts and hidden rooms where these schools supposedly operated, in secret. Of course, what has not been answered is why secret schools were found only in the Ottoman provinces that were later incorporated into the Greek state. Also, how is it possible that on the one hand, Greeks resort to secret schools, after the Ottoman bans, but on the other hand, they take pride in the numerous legitimate universities, such as the Great School of the Nation in Constantinople, where, among others, the Phanariote families excelled, the Evangelical School of Smyrna, the School of Kydonia, the School of Agrippa, the Zosimea School, the Atheniota School, etc. It is true that the enslavement of the Greeks and other Christians was followed by a spiritual numbness. However, because the church needed clergy, who obviously had to know how to read in order to understand theological texts and to write, it proceeded to operate ecclesiastical schools. Given that the aforementioned schools, Great School of the Nation, Evangelical School, etc., were of university level, it is expected that there were schools of elementary and secondary education. And indeed, Greek schools were established during the Ottoman occupation, either by the private initiative of Greeks or by the church. The centers of education established by the church were characterized as hiding places of many treasures of the ancient ancestors. Since the end of the 16th century, manuscript and official testimonies that have survived and deal with the state of Greek education attest to the establishment and operation of Greek schools. The German Hellenist Martinus Crusius, in his main work Turca Graecia, 1584, notes the presence of common schools, where children were taught to read using church liturgical books, as confirmed by the priest of the German embassy in Constantinople, Salomon Schweiger. The second and especially the third decade of the 17th century is characterized as a period of intellectual renaissance in enslaved Greece, with Greek education experiencing significant improvement that continued in the following decades. From the 18th century, schools multiplied, so much so that it was recorded that in 1806 every city had at least 2 or 3 schools. From time to time, cases arose in which the operation of schools became difficult or even prohibited in regions, mainly when it was associated with liberation movements or during various uprisings. The schools were housed not in a special building but in a simple room, located in the precincts of a church, in the women's quarters or the narthex of a church, in a monastery cell, but also in the workshop of a professional, who, in addition to teaching, also practiced his art. And because there were no school textbooks, ecclesiastical aids were used, such as the octoechos, the psalter, or the synopsis. In Gysis oil painting, the teaching hours are in the evening, because in the morning the children help their parents in the field. The father is shown with a rifle, to protect the children, if necessary, from wolf attacks. Perhaps here lies the historical core of the myth of the hidden school.